Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reich from Crime Talk. Sorry about the technical difficulties. You would think that it would be so simple to simply turn the computer on these days and all of a sudden you would start. Perhaps I'm making this far too complicated. Anyway, thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Scott Reich. This is Crime Talk. And tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about the follow-up on the Jussie Smollett case. As many people know and have heard, Jussie Smollett was a star on the Fox show Empire. And Mr. Smollett has managed to get himself into a world of trouble and now has apparently been able to get out of that trouble. But it still may be coming because just seems like things are a little fishy, but we will try to figure that out. Anyway, so Mr. Smollett thought it would be a good idea several months ago to send himself a letter with some ground up aspirin in it, alleging that he was going to be assaulted by basically racists. Then Mr. Smollett thought that it would be a good thing to then have a couple of friends that he knows to beat him up. They were supposed to be wearing MAGA hats, and they were supposed to put a noose and basically say that this was a racist assault. And as things started to develop, Mr. Smollett's story began to crumble. And the police basically talked to these two gentlemen that were involved in the assault and basically gave up Mr. Smollett by stating that they were paid. And not only can we prove that we were paid, let me give you a copy of the check. So Mr. Smollett wrote them a check for their services, and he basically went along with the story, and he told everybody that this was his story. He was not changing his story whatsoever. And the police reports have been released by the police today to show that they had a very solid case against Mr. Smollett. And he maintained his innocence. At one point, he was going to have an interview, according to the police reports, and on the advice of his counsel, he did not speak with them, which, frankly, that is a smart thing that he should have done. He was already basically in trouble for speaking because of his statements. He should probably stop speaking because of his statements. So that was good advice. Needless to say, he gets charged, he gets arrested. The Cook County state's attorney ultimately takes the matter to a grand jury. The grand jury indicts Mr. Smollett on 16 felony counts related to basically making false statements, lying to police officers, attempting to influence public officials, all of that character regarding the information that he had provided to the police. And so Mr. Smollett was supposed to appear in court earlier this week. It's really kind of a first appearance. In most cases, it's no big deal. His attorney had been in contact with the state's attorney, and the head of the state's attorney, that's a woman by the name of Miss Fox. We're going to try some of this high-fangled technology and see if it, in fact, works. And anyway, let's take a look here. There is the state's attorney. The state's attorney, however, though, disqualified herself because she's known people that are friends with him, basically high publicity. But when the district attorney states that there is a conflict, normally what happens is the entire office is conflicted off, and then they bring in what they call a special prosecutor. And that's very normal for a special prosecutor to be brought in because you don't want any sort of appearance of impropriety, that somehow somebody is going to get a better deal, that it's just not going to look fair. And the National District Attorneys Council, which is an organization, they do lobbying on behalf of district attorneys, they look at legislation, etc. It's about 2,600 members strong. And they wrote a letter basically condemning the way the state's attorney handled it in this particular situation. This matter should have been turned over to a separate office, not just the attorney recusing herself, Miss Kimberly Fox, and then having one of her deputies do it. That's not the way that's supposed to be done. And certainly it's already given an appearance of impropriety. And to make matters worse, so to speak, now there's information that has come out that the state's attorney, Kim Fox, has had conversations with people that are familiar with Mr. Smollett that may include possibly the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, as well as other people that were in touch with Miss Fox. And clearly that, it is inappropriate for somebody to try and say, hey, can you help somebody out? Now, in the practice of law, if somebody gets in trouble, I assure you, you know what the first thing they always tell me? Well, I know so-and-so. They're going to help me out. And the reality of it is no, they're not. And particularly if it's a public official, they're not going to jump in all of a sudden and say, oh my gosh, this person is such a great guy. Take care of that. Now, Miss Fox should have said, hey, you know what? I know you, you know me. We shouldn't be discussing this case in any way. And particularly, I'm going to recuse myself, and I should probably get a state's attorney from a different office to handle this matter, but I'm not going to do that. And but she went ahead and she did that, and let's face it, it was wrong. The National District Attorneys Association said it was wrong based upon the way she handled things, and everybody knows that. It just looks really bad. And I can assure you, and we talked about this the other night, I cannot think of a single situation, and the district attorney's office, the state's attorney's office, they have sent out an email to their deputy district attorneys, deputy state's attorneys, to ask them for similar circumstances where somebody with 16 felony charges has been given an alternative justice resolution, whether it be a deferred judgment, whether it be a deferred prosecution where, for example, Mr. Smollett received. Deferred prosecution, he doesn't even have to even say guilty at all. He didn't have to say, I think you could prove me guilty. Nothing along those lines at all. So I'm going to put money on it. I will bet $1 that there are no similar cases whereby somebody is charged with 16 felony counts and they get a deferred prosecution. I challenge anyone to come up with that. The only time that could possibly happen, maybe normally happen, is some sort of like white-collar crime. You got a bunch of charges, a bunch of indictments, maybe somebody rolls, maybe a minor participant. But when you are the principal actor and you have 16 felonies, oh my gosh, that is unheard of, okay? Now, Mr. Smollett, the DA's office is trying to defend their actions because they're saying, well, he had to post a $100,000 bond. In reality, he only posted 10% of that, and that was if he didn't show up for court, then the state would get the entire $100,000 he would owe, but that he would he's only had to put up $10,000 to date, so he'd have to pay up the balance, and that he had to forfeit $10,000 from that bond, and that would go to ultimately the state and the court for court costs, basically. Okay, I assure you, I have clients. It wouldn't even take 16 felony counts. It would take minor. If the cost of getting off was $10,000, sign them up. Okay, we are all over that. If it were that easy, Please, ladies and gentlemen, I have had people over the years come to me and say, can't we just pay somebody? And I tell them, no, it doesn't work that way. One, it'd be unethical, it'd be illegal, and you're a nice guy, but I am not going to jail, nor am I losing my law license for you. It's just simply not done. So ultimately, Mr. Smollett gets his 16 counts dismissed, then go in front of the judge, and as a part of the plea bargain, now Mr. Smollett also gets his case sealed. Well, what's the significance of sealing? Well, it's like it doesn't exist anymore. It's like it didn't happen. Public record search, people can't go find it. They can't do anything to say, oh, look, you can have it sealed. When they run a criminal background check, if you want to get a job, you want to get an apartment, it's not going to show up. It's like it never happened. All right? It's a great deal for Mr. Smollett. I am not criticizing Mr. Smollett. I am not criticizing his attorneys. Frankly, as a good attorney, hey, power hands, they got a great deal for their client. Client should be happy as a clam, and then we'll deal with that. Now, as the day has developed, the police are not happy. You had the current mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who is also the chief of staff for President Obama, basically saying that this was a whitewash of justice. This was completely wrong. It was inappropriate and never should have happened, and it makes everything look shady. And so this afternoon, the Department of Law, the police department in Chicago, sent a correspondence to Mr. Smollett's attorneys, and they are requesting reimbursement for the $130,000 for investigation overtime pay. The city is demanding immediate payment of $130,106.15 expended on overtime hours in investigating this matter. And they are requesting a cashier's check, and they are requesting that be paid within 7 days to the above address. And if these amounts are not paid, it'll be a violation of the city ordinance, and this will take place. If I was Mr. Smollett's attorney, I would say, not paying. That was not part of the plea bargain. Thereby, we would do that. In fact, my case is closed. Sounds like the police department should have coordinated better with the state's attorney's office, and the state's attorney's office is the one that missed out on this $130,000 collection, which frankly, that would have been restitution had Mr. Smollett been prosecuted even for a misdemeanor. That is, just given that basically the police were the victims in this particular case, being lied to, it would not have been uncommon for the state's attorney to have that listed as restitution. I mean, that would be fair game, and under most restitution statutes, that would have been applied for. But now that it's done, if I was Mr. Smollett's attorney, I'd be saying, pound sand. You guys blew it. You guys had your chance. Now, maybe Mr. Smollett will pay it just to move on, and everything would maybe help a little bit. But there's also news out today that Mr. Smollett will not be employed by Empire, the series that he stars in, basically because they are trying to cut ties with him. There's still apparently some of the co-actors on that case are supporting him, and others are not. But it'll be curious to see if people, if they want that type of controversy around, their program. I don't think it's going to do much help. And then also, kind of to add, kind of what I want to say, insult to injury, but Mr. Smollett, here he is in kind of his mugshot thing here, so to speak. But he was nominated by the NAACP for an award. And obviously some people are thinking he should get it. Other people thinking he should not. But he has ultimately been nominated for that. So the question now becomes, what is going to come of Mr. Smollett? Is he going to, like I said, life goes on, everything's good? Doesn't really matter. I think that Mr. Smollett, if he wanted to mend fences, should write a check to the Chicago Police Department for the $130,000 that they are requesting is kind of a good will gesture. Now, Mr. Smollett is not out of the ballpark just yet. What he also has to deal with now is a federal investigation, all right? And I'm always hesitant on these federal investigations, particularly when the state matter has been wrapped up. And although they can certainly do it, the question is, will they actually want to go after it? But as we discussed earlier when we came on the air here, that Mr. Smollett managed to send a letter to himself whereby he sent through the mail various, some ground up aspirin, basically, trying to think that it's some sort of poisonous agent that, they were trying to, kill him. And this is what it is, that they were out to get him, so to speak. So he still has the federal charges pending. And also, the Department of Justice has opened an investigation into not only Mr. Smollett, but more importantly, the state's attorney, Miss Fox. And if I was the Department of Justice and if I was an assistant United States attorney, I would be sending a preservation letter to the state's attorney there in Cook County, telling them to not destroy anything related to Mr. Smollett. I would want all emails preserved among the office to see what conversations were taking place. I would also ask or send preservation letters and send subpoenas to various individuals involved, Ms. Fox, any deputy that handled the case, as well as, frankly, Mrs. Obama, to see what telephone communications any of these individuals had with Ms. Fox or their family, whether it was his family, her family, to see if there's anything in between. I would also ask for bank records to see if anyone received any payment. As most people know, Chicago has a history of corruption. I read an article the other day, I guess it was maybe a couple of weeks ago, that Chicago and the state of Illinois are still one of the most corrupt cities and states in the entire nation. It is run by, these political machines. You have to know somebody to get a job. Oh, yeah, we'll take care of it. And the funny thing is, and I don't know, maybe somebody from Chicago or Illinois can explain to me why they keep electing these same people. Maybe everybody's so in on it that that's just the way it is. But I couldn't imagine living in a society where that's like living in some sort of third world country where you have to pay somebody to do something that you should be able to do legally. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Anyway, so that's the Smollett case. It's just my opinion, and I'm going to tell you this is my opinion. Something is not right in this particular case, and it just kind of bugs me because what you can see here is that this is not a routine thing, all right? If you manage to get 16 counts, 16 felony charges, you're not getting a deferred prosecution. Maybe it's a first offense, maybe a minor drug offense, something along those lines that happens. But that, and the case didn't go on, didn't develop in any way, it just smells bad. It smells fishy, and my guess is that they're going to be, and my guess is, and this is a guess at this point, and I'm speculating, I know that, but I'm speculating that there are going to be additional criminal charges that come from this, and not against Mr. Smollett, but it's going to be people associated with it. It's going to be people associated with them trying to help out Mr. Smollett for whatever reason. And the feds, if they're going to do something, we know they take their time, but if they indict, it's usually pretty, you've got problems. And I guess the problem that frustrates me, not only as just a everyday citizen, but as a criminal defense attorney, is you want to know, like, well, if these are the rules, let me know what we need to play by. If it doesn't matter, or if it does matter, if my client has money or not, just let me know. Let me know if, hey, my client is poor and indigent, that he's not going to get a fair shake, but if he's a celebrity, somehow he gets a free pass. If that's the case, just let me know, all right? But here, Miss Fox, got elected basically in Chicago, saying that she was going to, be a reformer and things of that nature. And, I'm not sure this is the case you want to be the reformer on, but it just shows what a lot of people have as whether a misperception or an accurate perception of our legal system, is that it's rigged. And that, basically, if you're rich, you get a free pass. It's going to be easier on you. And we all know that, the quality of your defense sometimes does, in fact, depend on how much money you do have, but not necessarily. Whether you have the public defender or a court appointing a counsel, you're going to usually get a very, very good attorney. But if you're just going to, all it is, pay this. I mean, I've joked over the years, among other fellow attorneys, justice is expensive. Injustice costs a hell of a lot more. Okay. And it's kind of a joke, but I guess apparently in Chicago, that's the reality, but the state's attorney in Chicago should just go and tell everybody, hey, these are the deal. If somebody is charged with a crime and somebody that I know that's connected, like maybe a former first lady, something along those lines, let them know you can get away with just about anything, because apparently that's the way Chicago runs. I frankly think that the state's attorney's office and all the deputies that didn't work on this case should be absolutely embarrassed by what their office has done. And I doubt that there's going to be any way that they can come up with any example saying this is routine. It's not normal. All right. So that's where we stand on that particular case. Now, the other matter that I want to briefly touch upon, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of facts because, frankly, there have not been anything released, but this is crime related, and that is the Mueller investigation. And I'm not here to pick sides, and I'm not here. Let's look at this as being intellectually honest. We have a special counsel who has been appointed, and in his charge, he was supposed to investigate various things. He spent apparently $25 million, had a huge staff of some 40 attorneys, paralegals and forensic investigators, all of these people looking at everything, issued thousands of subpoenas, received hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, and no indictment was filed or no recommendation for an indictment was found. That means that there's nothing there. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not being partisan in any way. If anyone's ever heard of the term, you can indict a ham sandwich, they mean that, okay? When the grand jury meets, there can be, let's say, 20 grand jurors meeting in a basement of an undisclosed location because it's supposed to be secretive, because no one's supposed to know the work that's supposedly going on. But when you go in front of the grand jury, if you're called as a witness, let's say you're a FBI agent and you go in there, you testify, like these are the facts, and the United States attorney who wants to indict basically has the grand jury for the allotted time. It could be, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, whatever, and they present their information, and it could be an ongoing investigation, or it could be literally just a quick little case and say, hey, we arrested this guy. He had drugs and a gun. Here's the information, and they indict. The United States attorney prepares the documents. They have them ready to go for the grand jury foreman to sign, and any of the other members that have to sign as well. And from there, someone is indicted, and the defense or the defendant doesn't get to be there. No representative from them, the defense gets to be there, and simply they present the evidence and issues regarding the illegality of the search, the issuance of the documents. Anything along those lines are not relevant at a grand jury. It can be a completely illegal stop, illegal contact, illegal search, completely illegal, and it's not relevant. They just simply say, here's the standard. We believe that a crime may have been committed, and you have done it, and that is it. All right? So the fact that no subpoenas, no grand jury indictment, or a true bill, as it is called, came back, just shows how little evidence there is. The other case that comes to mind when it comes to grand juries not returning a true bill, the one I can think of here in Colorado, would be the John Benet Ramsey case. In that particular case, the grand jury was convened by the district attorney. The district attorney presented their evidence, and in that particular case, the district attorney did not let the grand jurors indict. They wanted to, but the district attorney didn't allow that to take place. And so, it just really depends on who's running the show. Just like a DA or a U.S. attorney can decide who's going to be charged, they can also decide who is not going to be charged. I can tell you from particular experience, I represented a public official once before a grand jury, and I was like, hey, telling the state's attorney, we're not going to testify, we're not going to do anything. And they're like, don't worry, come in. Don't worry, it's all good. You have nothing to worry about. We're just making sure where everything's taken care of, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. You don't have anything to worry about. And so that is, it just shows you how it works, so to speak, in when it comes to the grand jury. There is so much decision-making and power that comes in the office of the district attorney or the United States attorney that they have a very an awesome power whereby they can literally change people's lives by making an accusation and destroying one's life, or whether it is simply they let somebody go who's the bad guy, or they let them off. It's an awesome responsibility that they have as a prosecutor, but you have to do it justly, and you have to be just when they're doing it, because the duty of a district attorney is not to get a conviction. His or her job is to do justice. And I think a lot of times, particularly when you meet younger DAs, they're more interested in making a name for themselves. They're more interested in, getting a few notches under the belt of, I won this case, or I got this guy. And it's not really looking at it in the big picture scheme of things, and just trying to do the right thing, so to speak. Not everybody needs a felony conviction. Not everybody needs a misdemeanor conviction that comes to court. I agree. Some people deserve a break. Some people had a bad day. That's not their true character. Some people do. There's some crimes you just can't forgive. You commit murder, you're not going to get a free pass, all right? And so that's really where it comes down to. So thank you for tuning in. Just a little reset here. My name is Scott Reich, Crime Talk. If you like the channel, please like it. Please subscribe. If you'd like to get little notifications, hit that little bell. And we're still figuring out some of this stuff as it comes to the notification and getting set up live. Some days you just wonder if all the technology, it's amazing. But we're working on it, and we're getting better, and hopefully you notice, and I hope you appreciate it. And also, if you have a question, now would be the time to put it in the chat section, and I will try to answer it. If you'd like to highlight it so you make sure I get to see it, you can use that super chat function and ask you any questions. But just as a quick recap, we talked about the Jussie Smollett case. He had 16 charges dismissed for lying to the police officers, basically allowing, or not even alleging, that he was beaten up by a bunch of racists and it was all fake. And today, it looks like his spot is on Empire's not coming back, as well as the prosecutors sending him a bill for $130,000. Additionally, the district attorney's counsel that the state's attorney, Ms. Fox, is a member of, criticized her, saying that this was not done above board. It just looks fishy, and it's just not normal. And I'm glad that they acknowledge that. And it's not just me as a criminal defense attorney of some nearly 25 years saying something's not right here. I'm glad even the prosecutors are saying something's not right here. So I appreciate it. Let's see here. Let's see. Julie, thank you. Yellow, orange, jalapeno, Judy, Ray, Pamela, appreciate that. Doll Factory, Barbara. Donna, thank you. Earth Science Official View. Julie, Wooly Woolworth, appreciate it. Let's see here. Let's see. You realize when you speak to a broad audience, many of us have served on a grand jury. I'm sure you have. I'm sure it's. I have never served, nor probably will I. But I don't. I wasn't trying to speak down to anyone who has served on a grand jury. I was just simply trying to explain the process to those who had not, so that they have a better understanding. Not trying to speak down to anybody. I assure you of that. Anyway, so I will. Basically, thank you all for tuning in this evening. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening. Please like the channel. Please subscribe. Hit the little notification, and we will try to be back with you either tomorrow or Saturday as well. And now that we're back from our trial, we are going to have a much more regular schedule. It's just been a little crazy, but after 3 weeks of trial, after a week of getting back in the office, we are getting back to normal. So have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching Crime Talk. And we will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful night.